respected Venerable Sangha members, and all Dharma brothers and sisters. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all in this gathering, and also I would like to extend my very warm greetings and best wishes to all the participants. Many of you have come from very far away places with a lot of difficulties and so on. So I will welcome you all. And this time our main teaching is the Vajrayogini teachings, but as a preliminary part today, and then Vajrapani initiation and teachings, and then the Vajrayogini circle of teachings. So as today, preliminary teaching, the very first thing is to create the right motivation. Motivation, if you have a bad motivation such as like desire, anger, ignorance, then it is more harm than the benefit. And if you have no good or bad motivation, if you come here as a spectators, also has no use. But if you have a good motivation, then it is an immense benefit. Good motivation also, there are many different levels. Since this is a Mahayana teaching, one must have the highest motivation. So the motivation should be, space has no limits, the sentient beings also has no limits. And limitless sentient beings, as we believe in rebirth, that every one of them have become our parents, but due to the change of life, that we do not recognize each other, and we see some as enemies, some as friends, some as indifferent, but in reality, every one of them are our very dear father and mother, not only one time, but many times, and they have protected from many harms and benefited immensely for many, many times. So therefore, for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, that one must attain the full enlightenment, because attaining the enlightenment is the only way to able to help fully the mother sentient beings. So the sole purpose of receiving teaching is not for the sake of this life, not for the sake of future lives, but for the sake of all sentient beings, to relieve all sentient beings from the suffering of samsara and to lead them to the path of happiness. For that one must attain the full enlightenment. So when you have such a high motivation, then all other things, such as like longevity, prosperity, success, etc., are very minor things, and they are naturally accomplished. And so one must have such a motivation. And then also the right conduct. Just as like the patient receiving advice from the doctor, the teacher is like a doctor, Dharma is like a medicine, and oneself is like a patient, and one's own defilements are like very severe illnesses, and those who are helping you are like medical assistants. And receiving teaching is like receiving treatment from a doctor. So with such attitude, and then also one have to be free from the three faults of containers. If the container has holes, whatever you pour in, it comes out. It does not remain inside. So similarly, even though you listen to the teachings, but if you are mindful, that does not hold, then it comes out and nothing remains inside. And if the container is upside down, then nothing goes in. So if you, even though you are sitting here, if you are not concentrating, then nothing goes into your mind. Then the third fault is that if the container is upside and it has no holes, but if it contains dirty things, but then whatever good things that you pour in, it spoils. You could not take it. It spoils. So therefore, even though you are sitting and your mind is holding, but if your motivation is wrong, and desire and anger and so on, then it does not benefit. So one should be free from these kind of faults. With that, then one should receive the teachings. And teachings, to receive the teachings, the very first thing that requirement is one must have the faith. If there is no faith, then the virtues, Dharma does not grow. For example, like the burned seed could not grow the shoot. Similarly, those who lack of faith, there is no base for the virtuous deeds, and you do not seek for the liberation, and then you do not grow the qualities of the noble ones. And for such a person, you could not receive the blessings of the Guru and the Triple Gem. So therefore, in order to practice Dharma, the faith is very important. And faith is like a mother, and faith is like a grows for all the other qualities. Faith will remove your doubts, and faith is everything. And what kind of faith? There are three kinds of faiths. The believing faith, and desiring faith, and clear faith. Believing faith means the one who believes in the law of karma and the Four Noble Truths and the Triple Gem. And that also not just belief, but logically proved that to hold. And then desiring faith means when you see the immense qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, especially the Buddha, then you wish to gain such qualities for yourself, is the desiring faith. And then the clear faith means when you see the immense qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it refreshes your mind. It clears all your confusion, all your doubts, and it refreshes your mind. And so it's called clear faith. So there are three kinds of faith. And these three kinds of faith also have to be stable that could not lose by desire, by anger, by fear, by ignorance. So if you free from this, and such faith is the base of all the qualities, all the qualities. For example, the desire, by knowing the consequences that you will face if you indulge the desire, and that even though you know that you will gain the kingdom if you leave the Dharma, but by knowing that desire is if one indulges with the desire, then one have to face very severe consequences. And so by knowing that you will not lose Dharma, even though you know if you leave Dharma you gain such wealth and power and so on, but by knowing that you will, no matter how much prosperity or how much wealth you gain, that you will not leave Dharma. It does not snatch or it does not take away your faith to Dharma. So that is the first one. And secondly, anger. By anger, sometimes you lose Dharma. For example, like when you get very angry, then you indulge negative deeds against the Dharma. And so that is also by knowing that when you indulge the anger, then it's a great harm, great harm, because there's no greater harm than the desire, the anger, because for thousands of eons, generosity, offerings, etc., the good deeds are all destroyed by one anger. So there's no severe sin or non-virtuous than the anger, and there's no patience is most difficult to practice. So therefore, it is very important to, as a counteract the anger, to practice the patient and through various ways. So by giving up Dharma and by harming your enemy is actually harming yourself. So by knowing that you will not harm, by knowing that even though what kind of anger that arises, but you will never leave the Dharma. And then the fear, if somebody says, if you don't give up Dharma, you will be killed. By dying in this life is is small. If you give up Dharma, then you will suffer many lifetimes. So by knowing that by knowing that even though you lose your life, that you should not give up the Dharma, in the faith to Dharma. Faith to Dharma, faith should be something like this, that no matter how much desire, or how much anger, or how much fear, that you should not give up. Because even though all world becomes your enemy, they could not take you to the lowest hell realms. But the defilements are the worst enemy, because they can take you to the worst hell realms. Even the Mount Sumiru will be made into the ashes. So therefore, by knowing, and then fourth one is by ignorance. If you don't know the ignorance, if you don't know, then by not knowing that there's a danger of losing your faith to Dharma. So therefore, it's important to study, especially the great lamas, great masters, their biographies, and by studying many scriptures, so that what is the right and what is the wrong. So by these, so therefore, the faith should be something like this. The faith is strong faith, so that no matter how much desire, or how much anger, or how much fear, or how much ignorance, that will not affect your strong faith, that you will not lose your faith. What kind of opposition, what kind of strong opposition arises, that it will not lose your faith. So since faith is the root of all the qualities, that in order to grow and improve, that you should pray to the Guru and Triple Gem, and also you should try to read the holy biographies of the great masters, and also to read the authentic sutras, and by avoiding sinful friends, and try to be associated with the virtuous friends. And so in this way, that you should nurture your faith. So with the person who have such faith, what one should practice is, first one have to practice a conducive place, the right place. The place should be a place where you can easily find your livelihood. Place there are no harmful people like thieves or bandits. A place where you have a good place, so that the earth and water does not create any disease. It's good water. And place where there are no sinful or harmful friends, the friends that who intensifies, activate the desire, defilements, and the sin, negative deeds, and in the quiet place where there are no daytime, there's no activities, the human activities, and nighttime, quiet place. And so it's such a place that one should try to find. And then how you sit in such a place is not lying down or leaning towards, etc., but by sitting in cross-leg, in Vajrasana position if possible, if not at least half of Vajrasana position, lotus position, and then by setting up a shrine of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, either painting or images, and then you make the offerings, and by sitting on a comfortable seat, either in the Bellajana's posture or other ways, then the very first thing is refuge, because refuge is the root of all the Dharma and preliminary practice of all the path, and foundation of all the vows. And it is a thing to differentiate between the Buddhist and non-Buddhist. And so the refuge is taught by five parts. First is the cause of taking refuge. Cause of taking refuge is three things: the fear, faith, and compassion. Fear in the sense, other oneself, all others, that you see the immense suffering of samsara. And so in order to save from such some suffering of samsara, then you take refuge. So that is the number one cause. And second cause is faith. In order to save from such fear, that you know that the triple gem has the power, and they have the power to save us, and then you have a clear faith that when you see the immense qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it refreshes your mind. So it's a clear faith. And then wishing to gain such a place for yourself is the desiring faith, and believing in the interdependent origination is the believing faith. So in this way that we take refuge. And the third cause is the compassion, especially those who have the Mahayana race, Bodhisattva's race. Some people have a naturally compassionate, and when they see the other beings suffering, that you have an immense feeling to save from such, and you have an immense feeling about the people who, the beings who are suffering. So in order to save from them, that you take refuge. So it is important to remember the cause of taking refuge. Because otherwise, even though we take refuge, it does not be very effective. To be effective refuge, it is important first to think about the cause of taking refuge, like fear, faith, and compassion. And then second is, so that is the first one. And second is the object of taking refuge. Now the object of taking refuge has many different levels. There is a worldly refuge, beyond worldly refuge. Worldly refuge also has like object worldly refuge and mind worldly refuge. Object worldly refuge means that people who are desperate, and they take refuge in like trees and moon, sun and moon and all kind of worldly deities who do not have the real power to save us from the real sufferings. So that has no use. And then mind worldly refuge means even though they take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but their cause is fear of these lives. This life is like a water bubble. It is not worthy of attachment. And so, but we take refuge for the sake of this life. So that is the true. These two are the true worldly refuges. And then beyond worldly refuge also has like Hinayana refuge and Mahayana refuge. Hinayana refuge, the Buddha, they do not describe the Buddha with the three kayas. Buddha is just one, and so on. So that is not the right. So here, according to the Mahayana refuge, Buddha means with the three kayas: Dharma kaya, Sambhoga kaya, and Nirmana kaya. Dharma kaya means the body of reality, and it is described with the double purities. Double purity means the first purity is the natural purity, that everyone's mind is natural purity. So the nature of the mind and the nature of the sentient being's mind and nature of the Buddha's transcendental wisdom, there's no difference. But there's a vast difference between sentient being and Buddhas, because we do not have the second purity, because this natural purity is not manifested. It is completely covered with the obscurations. Obscurations such as like the obscuration of the defilements and the obscuration of the knowledge phenomena. But then the Buddhas, so the Buddhas that through the accumulation of merit and wisdom heaps for many eons, they cleared all the obscurations, including its roots, and never reoccurring. And so the second purity is obtained. So such is the Dharmakaya. So Dharmakaya is the body of reality, and it is something that is within us. It is not that you gain from the outside, but it is something that we have right from the beginning, but is not manifested. So Dharmakaya, there's nothing new to gain. It is just only when the obscurations are cleared, then you gain the Dharmakaya. And it's also called the wisdom of Dharma Dhatu. So that is the Dharmakaya. And then, so that is for the self purpose, you gain Dharmakaya, so that you clear all the faults and you gain all the qualities. And then for the sake of others, you gain the Rupakaya. The Rupakaya, there are two. Rupakaya means body. Body has the two kinds, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. Sambhogakaya means the body of enjoyment. And that is the product of the immense accumulation of merits for many eons. And then you gain that your ordinary body becomes the Buddha's body with the 32 signs and 80 qualities, and your ordinary voice has become now with the 60 branch of the Brahman melody, and your ordinary mind becomes like omniscient wisdom that realizes the ultimate truth as well as all the relative truth. And so these are newly gained qualities. And the Sambhogakaya has with the 5 certainties. First, the Sambhogakaya, the certainty of place. Place is always in the highest Aganishta, the highest Buddha realm. Sambhogakaya does not appear in any other place, but only the highest Buddha field. And Sambhogakaya does not appear in different forms, only the Buddha's form with the 32 signs and 80 qualities. Sambhogakaya does not give many different kinds of teachings, only the Mahayana teachings. And Sambhogakaya does not have like birth and death and so on, that it always remains all the time, permanently remaining in the Buddha field. And Sambhogakaya does not have ordinary disciples, has only the highest bodhisattvas that already reached beyond irreversible, bodhisattvas that who already reached the irreversible state. So the Sambhogakaya is with the 5 certainties. And the Nirmanakaya means the body of emanations. The body of emanations, and that is wherever, whenever, whatever form requires. Unlike the Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya necessarily in the form of the Buddha. It appears in any form, like bodhisattvas, shavakas, Pratika Buddhas, universal emperors, kings, queens, even in ordinary masters or even in the animals forms, or even in the boats, or in bridges, if it helps the sentient beings that will appear in these kind of forms, and he will help the sentient beings. And so therefore it's different. And Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, when they are worthy of the disciples, then appears, but otherwise it also passes, also enters into the Nirmana, just like our historical Shakyamuni Buddha is also Nirmanakaya form. So therefore he was born, and then as a king, kingdom, as a prince of the kingdom, and then he renounced, and then he so actually according to the Mahayana teachings, the Buddha was already attained enlightenment already long before he appeared in India, but he reappeared in India. So the right from beginning, from his conception onwards, he is already fully enlightened Buddha, just to show the ordinary persons how to, ordinary persons such as like the prince of the kingdom, to search the liberation, enlightenment, and attain the enlightenment. So he just to set an example that he took the whole process of enlightenment. And so, and then he eventually passed away. He entered into the Mahaparinirvana. So the Nirmanakaya appears and also disappears, and Nirmanakaya is in many different forms. Nirmanakaya also gives many different teachings, Mahayana teachings, Hinayana teachings, and many different kind of teachings. And Nirmanakaya also has disciples, ordinary beings, and so the two are Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya are very different. So that is the Buddha. And then the Dharma has two aspects. One is the teachings, one is the realization. Teachings, they are like Tripitaka. The Tripitaka, the purpose of giving teaching is to counteract the defilements, against the defilements, in other words. So the antidote for the defilements of desire, the Vinaya was taught. As the antidote for the anger is the Sutra is taught. And the antidote for the ignorance is the Abhidhamma is taught. And so in this way, that the three teachings, the Vinaya, Abhidhamma, and Sutras. The realization has three precepts. The precepts of moral conduct, and the precept of the meditation, the precept of the wisdom, or other two, the truth of cessation and the truth of path. Truth of cessation is that where it sees all the defilements, and the path that leads to such a place is the truth of path. So this is, and so in this way, here also, both teaching and realization are the Mahayana teachings, Mahayana Dharma. And then Sangha. Sangha means the holy communities. According to the Mahayana teachings, the true Sangha are the bodhisattvas who have already reached the irreversible state. And then the following state is ordinary Sangha members, and that who are earlier than oneself, who are senior to oneself, are the Sangha members. So these are the object of the refuge: the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Then third is the way you take refuge. The way you take refuge is that you sit in front of the shrine by doing prostrations and by setting offerings, by sitting on a comfortable seat with the meditational posture, and then you imagine in front of you all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Shavakas and Pradika Buddhas and all the object of refuge. And then in front of this yourself with your root parents, which means this life's parents, and then all the sentient beings of the 6 realms. The hell realm, hungry ghost realm, animals realm, these are called 3 lower realms. Then 3 higher realms, the human realm, demigods realm, and gods realm, which are called 3 higher realms. So all of them, although they came from different realms, but in order to create the auspicious condition to obtain the precious human birth, they all are in human form. Though they are from hell realm, hungry ghost realm, animals realm, but not in animals form, but in a human form. Everyone in a human form, physically with a folded hand, verbally with respectfully reciting the refuge, and mentally with a strong faith that I, from the beginning last time until now, that I did not follow the spiritual master's advice, and I did not take refuge as my refuge, and due to this, that I've still caught up in the samsara with so much sufferings. So now, until I attain enlightenment, whatever happens, good or bad, success or failure, whatever happens, that I completely rely on the Guru and the Triple Gem. And so with that you take refuge in the Buddha as our guide, the guide who can show you the path. If you need to go to elsewhere, the first thing you need is you need the guide who can show you the correct path. So the Buddha is the guide who can show us the correct path of liberation and enlightenment. So that's why the Buddha is the guide. And Dharma is the actual path. The Buddha said that I have shown you the path, but the liberation, I have shown you the path of liberation, but the liberation itself depends on yourself. So that means we have to earn. You can't get the liberation from the Buddha as a gift, but you have to, you rely on Buddha, and then you have to practice what Buddha said. What Buddha teaching is that Buddha gave, that we have to practice ourselves. So the real savior of the samsara is the Dharma, because you have to save yourself. There's nobody can save us. Only we can save ourselves. For example, like when you are sick, it is important to have a good doctor. But if you do not follow the doctor's advice, and if you do not do the right things, then you could not cure. So similarly, Buddha is like a doctor. Buddha is like a guide who shows us and who gave us the treatment. But you have to do the right things and avoid the wrong things. And only then you can earn the liberation and enlightenment. And so with that, then as yourself doing the refuge, that and the Sangha are the companions. If you are going to an unknown destination, instead of traveling yourself alone, that if you have companions, then it's very helpful. So with the companions that we take refuge. And with that, just like physically, with the folded hand, verbally reciting the, actually here is the 4-line refuge, that I take refuge in the holy gurus, and I take refuge in the fully enlightened Buddhas, I take refuge in the holy Dharma, I take the noble Dharma, and I take refuge in the noble assemblies. So with that, we take refuge. And then at the end, as many times as possible, and then at the end that you, with the folded hand, that you pray to the Triple Gem to bless you, this request of blessing is attached with the parting from the 4 attachment. First it says that may bless me to my mind go deep into the Dharma. If you have attachment to this life, you are not a Dharmic person. So that if your mind does not go deep into the Dharma, then you are not a Dharma person. So therefore, by realizing this life is very short, this life is essenceless, this life is just like a water bubbles that has not worthy of attachment, and it is fragile, and the water bubble can burst at any moment. And so therefore that we have no attachment to this life. Second is that please bless me to be successfully to practice the Dharma. If you have attachment to this realm of existence, if you're still seeking the higher rebirth, then your Dharma path is not successful, because you are still roaming around in the samsara. It is a lower samsara. The difference is lower samsara and a higher samsara. Otherwise, it is still the samsara. So therefore, it has no use. So the successful means that the entire samsara is like a it is just like having attachment to the sweet poisons. Some of the poisons are, when you taste, is sweet, but if you eat this, it is very harmful. If you eat poison, even though it is sweet, but afterwards it can cause immense sufferings. So similarly, samsara, the higher samsara, sometimes we feel joyful and nice, but it has not worthy of attachment because it is not permanent, and it can again fall down to the lower realms where you have to suffer immense sufferings. And so therefore it is not successful. So therefore successfully path means completely renouncing totally either lower or the higher realms totally, and to seek liberation. So that is the samsara, the successful path means to. So the second line of the parting from the four attachment, and then the third is to clear. Bless me to clear all the confusions. If you seek just liberation for yourself alone, just nirvana for self you alone, it is a confusion. Because if you seek yourself alone, then it is just like raising your enemy's child. If your enemy's child is raised, it pleases temporarily, but eventually it can cause harmful things. So similarly, that is also bless me to so that you can completely all the confusions completely cleared. And then the fourth is bless me to the illusion to turn into the transcendental wisdom. This is the fourth line, which says, if grasping rises, you do not have the view. Yes, the third one is actually, you have a self-purpose, you do not have the bodhicitta. So that is just to seek liberation for you oneself alone. And then the last one is that if you have attachment to, if you grasping arises, you do not have the view. So if you grasp, you hold this as a real, or this is life, then it is just like craving the mirage as a water, that it could not quench your thirst. And then also you request to bestow the blessing so that the not rise even for a single moment the irreligious thought, non-religious thoughts, and may I bless me to rise the loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta with a great successfully, and bless me to quickly attain the fully enlightened Buddhahood. So this, after reciting the refuge, and then so as you requested, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they see, and they also compassionate mind holds, and their great activities will turn, and so that you are completely under their protection and under their blessings. And then you meditate in that absolute bodhicitta, absolute, because everything is actually mind. Mind is the one that everything. So the mind is mind. You cannot find anything. Mind is not in solid. Mind is not that you can touch with your hands. Mind is not you can see with your eyes. Mind is not in any ways. But at the same time, mind is the very powerful. Everything is done by the mind. So where is the mind? And when you try to look at the mind, then you cannot find anything. But there's a clear, vivid, constantly clear, vivid mind, and that is the clarity is the Sangha. And that when you try to search it, you cannot find anywhere anything solid. And so that is the emptiness, is the Dharma. And this clarity and emptiness are indivisible. Is the Buddha. So in this way you should you should remain in meditation, and that is called the absolute refuge. And then at the end you dedicate the merit. By taking refuge, that one gains immense qualities, and that you dedicate that for all the sentient beings. Now, so the refuge is explained with the 5 parts, and the 4th one is the benefit of taking refuge. Benefit of taking refuge is that it is the cause of receiving all the other vows. Without taking refuge, you cannot receive any vows. First, you have to take the refuge. It is the foundation of all the vows. So and etc. There are immense benefit. It is said that in the sutra, if the merit that you gain by taking refuge, if it has a form, then even the whole space is too small to accommodate it. Etc. So in any case, we found the unique, matchless refuge. So from today onwards, that I will, with a great enthusiastic, that I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, as I kind of treasure them and take them. Now the 5th one is then the benefit of the rules of the taking refuge. Even for worldly level, when you enter in some countries, then you are bound with the laws of the country, and you have to follow the rules of the country. So similarly, when you take refuge, then you are bound with the refuge rules. There are general rules and specific rules. The general rules, there are 5 general rules. Five general rules are number one is that even if it costs your life, you should never give up Triple Gem. Even if it costs you whatever kind of prices, that you should never give up the Triple Gem. So that is the number one rule. And then second is that whatever kind of emergency or whatever kind of desperate situation that arises, that you should not seek any other methods, but you should seek the guidance and blessings and protection from the Triple Gem. And third is to make offerings. If you have a shrine in your room, then every day you should make offerings such as like water, flower, incense, etc. If not, then at least on the special occasions such as like on the Buddha's birthday, Enlightenment Day, etc. And also every month, full moon day and new moon day and half moon day, etc. And then you should practice. The main practice is from the heart, that no matter how always seek it with deep heart. But just reciting alone is not enough. For example, you with a strong belief that you have to go. To protect from the rains, if you go to the caves, just by reciting cave will not protect you from the rain. Without any doubt that if you really walk into the cave, then you will be protected from the rains. So similarly, just by reciting that I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha, counting many times is also beneficial, but not so. But the main thing is from the depth of your mind, whatever happens in your life, the good or bad or success or failure, whatever happens, that I totally submit yourself under the guidance and protection and blessings of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, with a deep devotion and with a deep mind. Then you will be protected. And so you do this, you recite at the same time from the depth of one's mind, you take refuge. And then also encourage other people to take refuge. And then the fifth one is wherever you go, you should try to remember the Buddha of that direction. For example, like east is Buddha, east is Akshobhya, south is Ranasambhava, west is Amitabha, north is Amoghasiddhi, center is Berutana, etc. If you could remember. If not, at least wherever you go, you should remember the Buddha. So these are the 5 general rules. Then there are individual rules. Individual rules have two sets of rules. Things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do. Things that you shouldn't do is that after taking refuge in the Buddha, that you should not take refuge with the worldly deities, such as like the Brahma, Indra, etc. You can make offerings, you can pay respect, but you can't take refuge. There's a vast difference between taking refuge and paying respect. So that is the one you should not do. And what you should do is you should have a strong devotion to the Buddha, that you respect even the broken pieces of the Buddha statue with respect, treat with respect, like stepping on it, or putting it on the ground, or walking over it, etc., are not allowed. And after taking refuge in the Dharma, you should not harm any sentient beings intentionally. And you should try to practice Dharma through study, contemplation, and meditation as much as possible according to one's own abilities. And after taking refuge in this, and even the pieces of paper that contains the Dharma words, you should treat with respect. Especially nowadays, the Dharma books, some people just sit on it and stepping on it and walking over it and putting it on the ground and putting it under seat, etc. These are not allowed. This is wrong. So you should treat Dharma books with respect by placing it in a higher place, by making offerings, and by when you take also, you should take it with respect. And after taking refuge in the Sangha, that you should not take non-believers as your spiritual company. You can still have the non-believers as your ordinary friends, but not spiritual friends to whom you share your experience. Your experience and your spiritual kind of things that you should not associate with your spiritual activities with the non-believers. And respect, you should associate with the Sangha members and respect even the pieces of the cloth that is a red and yellow color with the respect. And then when you eat also, that you should try to, when you eat actually, it is said that you should divide your food into 4 parts. The first one should offer to the Triple Gem. Second one should offer your Dharma protectors. Third one you should eat yourself. And then the remaining you should also give to the remaining, to the Buddhas, their spirits that who are following the Buddha's teachings. So for them, that you should give to them. And eat in order to practice the Dharma, that you should try to eat the food just enough to be filled, and then giving to the remaining, giving to the people who are beggars and ordinary people. And whatever you do, things you do, that you should always relying on the triple gem. And if you do not rely on the triple gem, then there's no way to accomplish. So up until now that we've been caught up in the samsara is also because we do not believe in the triple gem and we do not follow the teachings. That's why that we are experiencing sufferings. Without relying on the triple gem, that if we try to do whatever wants to try to do, then it is not a definite that we will be able to do it. So today's main teaching is about the triple gem, the refuge. Since refuge is very important, and later on during the Vajrapani teachings and also Vajrayogini teaching, the refuge comes for the very first time. So the refuge, we should study the refuge and try to practice the refuge until you have the sign, until you have a real good sign. Counting number is important, but the most important thing is until you have a definite sign that your mind is more happier, your mind goes deeper into the Dharma, your mind is more comfortable, and your surrounding is more conducive, and if you feel like that you are going to do, then that's why. So with this we conclude today's session.